Or ABC 10 News at 5 starts right now.
For months, the CDC has been warning people not to mix and match COVID-19 vaccines, while a local doctor says giving 2 doses of different vaccines could offer better protection.
Family members searching for answers after learning that their loved ones were on a smuggling boat that capsized off the coast of Point Loma. The uncertainty they are still facing.
And a happy ending for an iconic bookstore that's been in the heart of La Jolla for more than 100 years. How a group of loyal customers managed to save Warwick's from closing its doors for good.
ABC 10 News at 5 starts now.
Today marks exactly 4 months since the disappearance of a Chula Vista mother, and frustration is growing among Maya Milliete's loved ones as they continue to look for answers. Good evening, I'm Lindsay Pena.
And I'm Steve Atkinson. Family, friends, and complete strangers have been searching the region for her every single weekend. Our ABC 10 News reporter Mimi Alcala has a timeline of what we know so far.
The last day Maya Milliete was seen or heard from by family members was on January 7th, 4 months ago. It was the same day the family attorney said she filled out a form requesting an appointment with a divorce lawyer. Maya was reported missing from her home on Paseo Los Gatos in Chula Vista 3 days later. Chula Vista police officers say they searched the home and vehicles that day. A second search happened on the 11th. On the 12th, ABC 10 News heard from her husband, Larry Milliete. He said they had argued before she disappeared.
We've been having, problems.
Maya's family hired their own attorney and investigator to look into the case.
To continue to try and find what happened to Maya. That's my job.
It wasn't until January 23rd that Chula Vista police actually served a search warrant at Maya's home. Then in early February, police said Larry retained a lawyer and was no longer cooperating. On February 5th, the family and police department held a joint press conference. Every week for months now, volunteers have searched multiple locations for Maya. On April 21st, Chula Vista police announced they partnered with the DA's office, the FBI, and NCIS for this investigation. Dear Maya. Family and friends celebrated Maya's 40th birthday at Fiesta Island on May 1st, praying for her safe return. Days later, they rallied outside of the Chula Vista Police Department and City Hall, calling for more transparency in the investigation, saying her 3 children miss her.
We want to tell her 3 children where mommy is. They've been waiting for 4 months.
This week, the police department released an update in the case saying they've had interviews with 56 people, written 23 search warrants, and reviewed more than 55 tips on Maya's possible location or reason for disappearance. Mimi Alcala, ABC 10 News.
The Chula Vista Police Department also started working with the Cold Case Foundation to try and provide advocacy for Maya's family. The family was assigned a victim advocate just this week. We have some breaking news now from Sherman Heights. This is video from just a few moments ago. Sky 10 was over this small fire. This was at 19th and E. Some flames and that smoke, they were visible from the air. And we do understand that firefighters made quick work of this, put it out. Of course, we will continue to update you as more information becomes available on how this started.
Now to the latest on the coronavirus. Soon teenagers may be able to get the COVID-19 vaccine. Pfizer is expected next week to get emergency authorization to make the shot available to children between 12 and 15. Moderna says they're not far behind. Their president says trials show the vaccine is 96% effective in teenagers.
The goal would be to make sure that the vaccine is available for vaccinating adolescents over the course of the summer and at least before the coming school year.
A new poll suggests only 30% of parents plan to get their children vaccinated when it becomes available to them. 25% say they'll wait and see. Another 25% say they won't get their children vaccinated at all. The CDC tells vaccinators not to mix and match COVID vaccines, but there have been cases of people showing up for one shot and accidentally getting another. ABC 10 News anchor Derek Stahl is going in depth to explain why that may have some surprising benefits.
It's right there on Vina Thomas's vaccination card. First dose Pfizer, second dose panic.
And I was like, what?
That was in Northern California. In New Hampshire, it was the other way around.
As soon as he poked me, he looked down at my card, and I think he realized he just gave me the Pfizer. And I'm just like, this isn't happening.
The CDC's website says the COVID-19 vaccines are not interchangeable, adding the safety and efficacy of a mixed product series have not been evaluated.
I've been scared, I don't know what's going to happen.
But if you get dealt cards like these, doctors say don't worry.
There's certainly no danger to it.
I would think that it's not that big a deal when you get a Pfizer instead of a Moderna.
Dr. Christian Ramers of Family Health Centers of San Diego says the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines use the same mRNA technology, so they're very similar. And he says based on past vaccines, mixing might actually be a good thing, because different shots train the immune system a little differently.
Whether you're on a sports team or whether you're in the military, you drill to make the scenario as real as it can be for when you actually face the enemy. That's basically what a vaccine is. And so what this is kind of just mixing up the drills and maybe making your army or your sports team a little bit better prepared.
This mix and match 1-2 punch is already used in a vaccine authorized against Ebola, along with Russia's Sputnik V COVID vaccine. A trial called COMCOV in the UK is currently testing all kinds of mix and match combinations, like a first dose of AstraZeneca followed by a Pfizer, or a Pfizer followed by a Moderna or Novavax. Scientists think the best results will come from mixing different vaccine technologies, because some platforms are better at waking up one part of the immune system than another.
For example, you may have better antibodies responses when you do a certain approach, or you may have better T-cell responses when you do a certain approach. All that science has to be worked out.
But there are early animal studies suggesting this works, says UC San Francisco's Dr. Monica Gandhi.
There was a study in mice that showed that if you gave two different types of vaccines, what's called an adenovirus DNA vaccine like the Johnson & Johnson we have here, and an mRNA vaccine, you got a better immune response.
In the coming months, the question of mixing and matching will be very important if we need booster shots. Are we going to have to stick with one brand, or can we branch out?
There's a certain proportion of the population that won't respond to a hepatitis B vaccine. And if we just switch to a different brand, sometimes people do. So we may eventually mix and match. I think theoretically the risk of harm in doing that, especially if you stick with the same platform, is pretty darn low.
We should have more concrete answers soon. The NIH is about to start a study on mixing and matching booster shots, and the first results from that UK trial could be released this month. Derek Stahl, ABC 10 News.
The CDC says if you do accidentally get two different COVID vaccines, you're considered fully vaccinated and you do not need any further doses. And here are the latest numbers on the coronavirus in San Diego County. 210 new cases were reported today, bringing our total to 277,533. And there were 2 more deaths, bringing that total to 3,718. And you can follow any developments surrounding the pandemic by downloading our free mobile app. Just go to the App Store and search 10 News.
Family members are desperately trying to contact survivors from that smuggling boat that capsized off the coast of Point Loma. 3 people were killed and more than 24 were hurt in Sunday's accident. Our ABC 10 News reporter Jennifer Dela Cruz tells us about the family still searching for answers tonight.
It's been nearly 1 week since rough seas sent this boat crashing into the Point Loma shore with 32 people on board. Family says 34-year-old Hector Sanchez Hernandez is a survivor, but they're unable to reach him. In Spanish, they tell ABC 10 News they're worried.
We're anguished, desperate, not knowing anything about him.
Catalina and Esther say they told their younger brother it was too dangerous to cross into the U.S. by land or by sea, but he didn't listen.
He spoke to me. He just sounded desperate. Please get me some money.
Family says he arrived in Tijuana just 3 days before the accident. He was seeking asylum, forced to leave his wife and young daughter in their hometown. The boat's captain, 39-year-old Antonio Hurtado, appeared in federal court on May 5th. The U.S. citizen now facing smuggling charges. The complaint says most of the surviving migrants are citizens of Mexico. One is from Guatemala. They agreed to pay between $15,000 to $18,000 to be smuggled into the United States. Hector Sanchez Hernandez and most of the other survivors are under custody of the Department of Justice. Hernandez's sisters hoping they can speak with their little brother soon. Jennifer Dela Cruz, ABC 10 News.
And the captain of that boat is due back in federal court for his next hearing on Tuesday.
Police reform advocates are trying to convince San Diego leaders to cut the SDPD budget. Today, the City Council talked about law enforcement as they consider Mayor Todd Gloria's budget proposal. Gloria wants a $19 million increase for police. The department says they need the money because they've lost income from events canceled during the pandemic. Critics say the money could be spent smarter, or rather in a better way. They say more funding of community programs would help lower crime.
This year, instead of adding to an already bloated police budget, we really want to do that reimagining of public safety, funding alternatives to policing, community care, housing, equitable job opportunities, parks. and long-term programs like youth and young adult violence intervention programs.
We did reach out to Mayor Gloria. He told us his budget is a sensible one that will make the city safer. A federal grand jury has indicted the 4 former Minneapolis police officers involved in George Floyd's arrest and death. Derek Chauvin and 3 others are accused of willfully violating Floyd's civil rights as he was restrained face down on the pavement and gasping for air. Chauvin was already convicted of murdering Floyd. The other 3 were indicted for either not intervening or failure to provide medical care. They face a state trial in August and are free on bond. Chauvin faces sentencing next month. There is a new effort to crack down on so-called ghost guns. Those are homemade firearms that don't have serial numbers. That makes them hard to trace, and they're often sold without background checks. Today, the Justice Department announced it's proposing a rule to broaden the definition of firearms. That would require some gun-making kits to include a serial number. The department says 23,000 ghost guns have been recovered from crime scenes in the last 4 years.
This is the first photo of that out-of-control 10-story Chinese rocket that is set to crash into Earth this weekend. Scientists are trying to pinpoint when it could actually happen. And as ABC's Rena Roy reports exactly where it will land, that is also unknown tonight.
A 23-ton, 10-story rocket is spiraling out of control, heading for Earth this weekend, and scientists say it could land anywhere from the U.S., Europe, China, even New Zealand, with no way of knowing until a few hours before. China's space agency launched it last week. The boosters were supposed to fall into the ocean, but instead entered Earth's orbit. Physicist Michio Kaku on CNN.
Traveling at 18,000 miles per hour, like a flaming meteor from outer space, is going to light up the sky. It's a huge part of the Earth's surface.
Remnants from the rocket are up to 100 feet long. Nothing this heavy has fallen back to Earth in more than 30 years.
It's like you took 3 good, full-size pickup trucks and distributed them. So, potentially it would be like you dropped one of these trucks.
Scientists are hoping it falls into the sea because if not, it could cause serious damage. Just like we saw last year in Africa, a similar incident sending debris crashing down.
It had these long metal rods, 15-meter long metal rods that were slicing through the atmosphere. Wow. And crashed into buildings in these villages in Ivory Coast.
And China has a history of space debris falling back to Earth. That faint white streak you see is a Chinese space station that was spotted from the south of France in 2018. Experts say, though, the chances of a person getting hit by debris are about 1 in several billion.
The chance that any given individual get injured? Nah, not worth thinking about.
The U.S. Department of Defense is tracking this rocket and urging other countries to do the same, but right now there is no plan to shoot it down. Rena Roy, ABC News, New York.
One of the brothers who co-founded the Vans sneakers empire has died. The company tweeted today that Paul Van Doren passed away at the age of 90. Van Doren, his brother Jim, and 2 other partners opened the first Vans store in 1966 in Anaheim. 12 people bought shoes on that very first day the store opened. The shoes then grew in popularity during the skateboard culture of the 1970s. Van Doren sold the company in 1988. It is now headquartered in Costa Mesa.